I run a website called Select Software Reviews, which helps HR teams to find and buy the right software. We do a lot of research. We write up our research. We create videos and courses, and we have a community and all these things so that any company around the world can go on and say, okay, what is the right payroll software for me? What is the right applicant tracking system, et cetera. And I think that HR systems and tools and software is useful throughout the entire employee lifecycle, from your employer brand and getting the message out, getting to the right job boards, collecting resumes, doing assessments, scheduling interviews, all the way through that recruiting process. And then when somebody starts as an employee, onboarding, employee experience, rewards and recognition, HRIS, benefits, wellness, all this stuff. And so it's pretty cool. The landscape's evolving very quickly. There's more and more use cases for tools. And of course, that makes it more complicated. It's really challenging to figure out which vendors you should partner with. And that's where a lot of our research really focuses, so that you can really spend time with the companies that will provide the most value for your organization. I personally started my career off working in venture capital, doing early stage software investing into companies like LinkedIn or Pinterest or Shopify. I wanted to always start my own business, and so I went to business school to get my MBA. And while I was there, I taught myself how to program and started working on different projects, one of which became an employer branding SaaS that about 2 years ago, we hired somebody to run it on a day-to-day basis. And so I had all this free time. I love to learn, I love to teach. And while I was at my previous company, I realized that a lot of HR teams were really struggling with how do we select the right tools for our organization. And I thought this could be a really cool thing for me to tackle, to really get into the research, to explain the different tips and tricks for somebody so that they can be the most successful purchaser for their organization as well as their own personal career, so that they can advance and make an impact. Trends are probably around the use of artificial intelligence. So that's like slightly smart software that can not just do a workflow, but it can look at a workflow and try to figure out how to do it a little bit better the next time. A great example might be an algorithm that looks at your job description and goes off on the internet and tries to find relevant candidates. And it might give you 100 candidates, and you might say, this one's good, this one's good, this one's bad, and here's why it's bad. And it says, oh, okay, thanks for telling me that. Now I know that this person needs at least 4 years of experience. And you say, this one's bad too. Oh, okay, now I know somebody needs to live in Mexico City versus other places, et cetera. And so it can quickly, the next time it gets you 100 applicants, 80 of them might be good versus 30 the first time. And so that's going to save you a lot of time. And that's happening across lots of different HR and recruiting functions. The other, I think that's really cool is you're seeing all these like society issues that are more and more important: mental health, diversity, equal pay, meritocracies. And you're seeing technology that comes in and helps to solve that within the organization. How do we make sure we have diverse and equitable hiring practices? How do we have a workforce that supports people that might be going through some sort of mental health crisis, or maybe something that they're dealing with over a longer period of time? And so I think those are pretty interesting trends. The last one that I'm personally excited about is just using more data to understand our organizations better. There's tons of stuff that people analytics teams can do to figure out, why do some employees succeed, why do some fail, and how do we create a better organization and a better employee experience. I think company culture is going to give you the clues to where to focus. And so if you have really bad weaknesses, for example, maybe you have a customer success team that has atrocious churn, because the culture there is to treat everybody like a number. And so there's no strong employee onboarding, there's no training and development, there's no promotion path, maybe the compensation isn't very exciting, et cetera. Those cultural aspects are going to create a problem, which is people leaving really fast and your business struggling. And that's going to tell the HR team, the people team, to say, hey, we need to focus on this from a tools perspective. The flip side of that might be a strength. You might have a really phenomenal sales culture where people can get to quota really quickly, get promoted, there's a really great product to sell, etc. And an organization might see that strength and say, hey, we need to evangelize this. So we need a better career website that shows what an amazing opportunity this is for potential salespeople. We need to get in front of the right communities of salespeople who might want to work at our company, etc. And so I think that's kind of how culture can influence where you focus your HR tech efforts. I think there's a couple things. One, you might have existing waste in your budget. That can be tools that you don't use. It could be tools that are redundant. It could be vendors that maybe markup tools. Maybe you bought something through another company and they're taking a 50% margin or something like that. Two, and probably most importantly, is that your new tools should provide an ROI from your existing process. So let's say, for example, you have 10 HR coordinators who all they do all day long is schedule interviews. Those people, if you're in the US, they might cost you close to $1 million a year from those 10 employees. And so you can take that $1 million budget and you can spend probably $20,000 or $30,000 on an AI-based interview scheduling application that will drastically decrease your budget and allow you to either reallocate it, take those HR coordinators, train them to be recruiters, or you can just let them sort of naturally churn out of your organization. So usually there's a pretty strong ROI when you're transforming digitally. That's why companies are doing it. They're not doing it to be cool. They're doing it because they're rational capital allocators. It's really challenging. And it's something that I still have yet to really systematize. We try to go to conferences, talk to smart people who are using the technologies or analyzing the technologies or building the technologies or investing in the technologies. So it's really just a lot of conversations, a lot of reading what's out there, looking at what's going on in the M&A, the venture capital space, and formulating viewpoints on what's going to be interesting and what maybe is more of like an old school trend that's going to get replaced by a new one. And then the way that we test things is we try to talk to the actual vendors and understand what are the workflows, what's the actual value, how do we think about the evidence for that value, not just in what somebody says, and how easy is it to capture that value for your average HR team. So I think they can be really impactful parts of the buyer journey, just like talking to peers, going to conferences, lots of different ways that you can sort of inform where you should be spending your time and what vendors to talk to. I think that with any of those, and even our own website, there are pitfalls. So for example, G2 Crowd, a lot of reviews are written by customers that are asked to leave those reviews. Many times they're paid to leave those reviews. And so you sometimes can get some bias, just like you have bias when you talk to somebody who's used a tool previously. And I'll be the first to admit, like we're not devoid of bias either. We're human beings. And so we're going to be attracted to and repelled by certain things based on our past experiences or the conversations that we have. And so I think it's really important for buyers of HR technology to develop a holistic skill set to understand how to diligence different information sources, different vendors, and then partner internally with the right people who can fill in their holes. If you're, not good at analytics, if you're not good at understanding digital marketing, there are people in your organization who can help you with those parts of the process when you get stuck. My advice is to get started. I think a lot of companies will spend years, sometimes literally planning and strategizing and building committees and these huge plans. And realistically, you're never going to get good at this. You're never going to understand what works and what doesn't unless you adopt an agile, iterative approach to figuring out in your entire employee life cycle where are the weaknesses, where are the strengths, what are the no-brainer things that we know we need to do? How do we get started on that? How do we create a really good process around that for trying new tools, for evaluating things in an analytical framework to kill or scale, and really just stealing ideas from the rest of the organization? Look at what product management does, look at what finance does, look at what sales does when they are changing their organization digitally. So anybody that is researching what tools to buy, how to transform their HR or recruiting functions to a more digital organization, they should definitely check out our research, our blog, sign up for our newsletter, join our community. To be quite honest with you, there is not a tremendous amount of really awesome content out there, which is unfortunate. A lot of it comes from vendors, or a lot of it comes from folks who maybe did one teeny tiny thing, but when you dive a level deeper, it's challenging to understand if they did the right thing or not. For me, I've found that some of the best people in this industry are the ones who are leading people operations at mostly really fast growing technology businesses. There are certainly others in professional services and other industries who have done a great job, but for the most part, if I just want to give general advice, try to find the head of people operations at a unicorn in your geography and get coffee with them to understand what they've done, because they're growing really fast. They have budget. They usually have leadership that's bought into the power of people operations. And they have all the challenges that any company has because of the change that's happening at their company. So try to get coffee with those people and pick their brains on their playbooks.